Hi, my name is Simon Hill. This is a Marmaris meditation. I'm here in beautiful Marmaris, Turkey, on the beach with my beautiful wife. And a Marmaris meditation video is when I think about a philosophical question that I don't really have the answer to. It's just something to mull over and think about. And recently we've been having questions amongst ourselves, amongst our friend groups, about what is a person, what defines personhood. And we eventually came to this question: are the mind and the soul related? Are the mind and soul one thing, right? I'll start by going in, and then you can go. So I would say I'll start with the belief that there is a soul. Let's say I start with the presumptuous belief that there is a soul, right? Okay. How do I know I have a soul? I have a soul because I think about it or I feel it, right? Those things come from the mind, right? Which therefore comes from the brain. I rationalize I have a soul, or I've been told I have a soul. I think about it, then I believe that it does exist, right? If my mind never existed, could the soul still exist, right? This is the same question as do we know if animals have souls? Because animals, as far as we know, don't rationalize like us, and they don't communicate to us like that. Therefore, we don't know if they believe they have souls, or even if they have them, if they do exist, because they cannot rationalize or explain to us how their souls function or how they believe they do function. Let's say I start with the presumption that there is no soul. Could I rationalize with my mind that there is a soul, right? I would say, once again, it starts from the brain, and therefore it comes from my mind. And I would then still rationalize the belief that I have other qualities or traits or beliefs in me that do not come from my mind, that they then come from my soul, right? I think it's hard to grasp this in a full way. It's hard to really put your mind around it, because we can't imagine a life without expressing whether we have a soul or not. It's hard to say it without saying that you have a soul, to know if you have one, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What do you think? Are the mind and soul one thing? Can you have a soul without a mind?
I mean, it's a hard question. When I think like specifically with my logic, I want to say soul is another creation of the human mind, and that we created to, put some meaning into some of our behavior or feelings. But in the reality of it, I do believe that I have a soul, or you have a soul, or people in general have a soul. Mm-hmm. And I even question if animals have souls. But if you remember the thing that, like I said when we were arguing about this, let's say there's a person with a mental disability that, makes them not think logically, radically, or, they can't decide between right or wrong and stuff like that. Would they still have a soul? And I think yes. So I want to say those it's kind of similar to what Damla said, like one of my friends. Maybe they are separate, but I feel like mind kind of helps us to reflect our soul.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
All right. So you said, like, if somebody had a mental disorder and they did something wrong, or something we perceive as wrong, right? Their soul comes into question, whether they have a soul or not, right? That's the question?
They don't specifically need to do something bad. If they can't use their mind as we can, would they still have a soul that's left separate from their minds?
I think we have to make clear what does the brain do, what does the mind do, what does the soul do. And I would say that the brain controls our bodily functions. It makes our heart beat, our eyes blink, right? It also creates the mind, and the mind does the rationalizing and the thinking, and creates also feelings and beliefs. And I think some people would say the soul is about our morality. It controls what we believe is right and wrong, or gray and that sort of thing, right? Is that how you view the soul, brain, mind, or do you view it differently?
I mean, but like I said, even like to express our morality, our emotions or feelings, or deciding what's right and wrong, we use our minds and then we express them. But what I'm trying to say is, even if we can't express that, do we still have a soul? You get what I'm saying?
Like, as if if we couldn't talk, like,
yeah, like let's say I can't, like I say just gibberish, I talk gibberish, I can't, communicate with anyone, I can't feed myself, maybe I lost that bodily function, brain function.
Right.
I piss myself. Do I still have a soul? Even though I'm not
I think
what normal people
I think many people, of course, would say yes, right? Because there are people who are handicapped, people who have children with Down syndrome, for example.
I'm talking about like something super extreme. But yeah.
Well, I mean, what you described is like somebody with Down syndrome or somebody with some sort of mental disorder, right?
Yeah, but Down syndrome people still show brain functions.
You're imagining like a comatose, paralyzed person who's almost like a vegetable.
Yeah.
So, like, if I get into an accident right now and I literally can't talk, walk, or speak ever again, you're saying my soul becomes extinguished?
I'm not saying your soul becomes extinguished. I'm asking that question, and I feel like that's like you would still have a soul, but you have no way of expressing it.
Okay. Ooh, this is getting too heavy. This is heavy.
So just because you can't express it doesn't mean you don't have a soul.
So if that's the case, animals have souls.
Because
they can't. Well, they can't express it. Shit. Well, the question originally are the mind and soul connected? So, for example, if we put a human brain into a computer, and this computer could talk, think, and function like a human perfectly, and also continue to learn and grow, does that computer have a soul? Because it's rationalizing, unlike the people who you just said can't do anything.
Yeah, but that's just the mind part. There's no soul in that.
But I haven't heard anything else that you said that says that the soul comes from anything else other than the mind.
That's what I'm questioning. Like, then if still the soul exists without the logical mind, there is still a soul, and that would mean that they're separate things. But mind is like a tool for the soul to express itself. But they're still separate things.
I would say if they're separate things, then it would be possible to not put the mind of a human into a computer, but put the soul of the person into a computer. If you're saying they're separate things, let's say we invent a machine that sucks your soul out and puts it into an AI. But then how would that interact any differently? It would just be a thinking thing that would express itself. The more I think about this question, the more I doubt that there is a soul.
Yeah,
the more I think about it.
You can't suck a soul out of a person.
So then it's connected to the mind.
I don't know. I'm just saying, if I believe in a soul, which I do, I think those are two separate things, but mind is, like, you cannot express your soul without the mind.
It's similar, I guess, maybe.
Connected to the mind.
I'll help you out. Even though I disagree with you, I'll help you out. You're saying the soul is like the tongue to the mouth, or the mind is like the tongue to the mouth. So let's say we don't have a tongue, we can't express ourselves, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a mouth and we don't have the possibility to express ourselves.
Right.
So the soul is similar to like the different parts of the mouth that make us expressing ourselves possible, or the mind, however you see it, right? Am I getting it right?
Okay, here's an example from my view. You can't have fingers without having a hand. That makes sense. So the soul is like the fingers and the mind is the hand.
The soul is the fingers and the mind is the hand.
And you can't have fingers without a hand, because you need this part of the hand. You can't have like your finger is connected to your wrist.
So that means...
But you can't have a mind without a soul, which is IA, which is maybe animals. I'm not sure about that.
So if you can't have if the soul and the mind are like fingers in the hand, that means they are essential. They are essentially together, bounded together, because their function has to work together. So in your opinion, the mind and soul, while separate entities, are symbiotic, meaning that they work together, they have to be together. Just like,
kind of like the soul being dependent on the mind to be able to express what the soul is about, or what that person's soul is about. Otherwise, you don't really have an idea what your soul is about if you can't put it into words or put it into action.
That's a very good point. But I think we've reached the same conclusion, but maybe my conclusion is that, because the more I think about it, the more I cannot find anything actually done by the soul. I think the soul is maybe an invention of religion or faith at the end of the day, because as you're describing it, you said, yeah, the soul is dependent on the mind, but when you ask what does the soul do, what does it do?
You said it's like depends on morality and feelings, emotions, maybe the sixth sense, if that's like even a thing. So.
But I would say morality a lot of the times is rationalized. I would say morality is mostly rationalized. I don't think there's any. Damn, I'm a bad Muslim. I'm a bad Muslim because as a Muslim, you're supposed to believe that there is some morality that comes naturally from within you. I think it's called your fitra. Your fitra says that there are certain things we just naturally believe. Like we all naturally believe there's one God. We all naturally believe that murder is wrong, and it's that sort of thing. But the more I think about it, the more we have rationalized these things to be wrong rather than naturally believing that they're wrong. So if there's no natural morality, then what is the use of a soul? Or the soul probably doesn't even exist. So maybe the mind is solely there and we just imagine the soul to be there.
Are there things that we can't rationalize? Everyone has that moment where they feel like, I feel like this is the wrong thing to do. Or I feel like something is wrong about this. Maybe that's when the soul comes into play. Or is that still the rational mind?
I think there are of course things that we struggle to rationalize, whether it's right or wrong. That's why we create new laws and new social norms and stuff like that, right? For a long time, humanity couldn't rationalize homosexuality for one, right? So they said that's wrong because we can't rationalize it in our society. Now we've reached a point where we can rationalize it. Yes, there are some things that we can't rationalize, but that doesn't mean they're irrationable, meaning that we can never rationalize them. We're just struggling to figure out the right answer to them, in my opinion. And I don't think that comes from a soul, because the soul has no purpose. I'm sorry. Now that we've had this discussion, the answer I've come to is that the soul has no purpose. The soul. It's okay. The answer I've come to is that the soul sort of has no purpose. Maybe it's not there. We only have the mind, and we envision more. We ascribe more to the mind than it does. Because if the mind and soul truly were separable, then we would be able to separate them into different entities. We could possibly put the mind in a box and a soul in another box, but we can't. Right? You said the mind and soul are like the hands and the fingers, right?
Yeah.
Technically, if you cut off my fingers, you could put them in your hand. You could put my soul, my fingers, in your hand. But we can't do that.
Grab it.
Right, but if the mind is an actual thing that we could one day differentiate between the mind, we should be able to put it in separate containers, right? You could separate water to some extent. You could have, 2 parts of oxygen, H2O, hydrogen one here, and oxygen somewhere else.
Yeah.
Oh wait, maybe that doesn't support what I'm saying, because water, once they bond, they're inseparable. Oh, yes, you can.
They are?
Yeah, no, they're separable, because if you heat them, they evaporate and turn into different. So yeah, even water is separable. Hydrogen, oxygen.
What are you talking about? Something biological? It's not like soul has, not biological, chemistry, whatever.
Chemical.
Chemicals. But soul doesn't have something that you can hold or feel or see in molecular versions of it. But the mind, you can, because it's the brain. Or at least be associated with the brain.
It's definitely, the mind definitely comes from the brain, because we know for a fact if we shoot somebody in the head, they can't talk anymore, and their brain is gone, and they can't rationalize or think anymore, right? Wow. We did not reach a conclusion, but that's a beautiful thing about these Marmaris meditations. They're conclusionless. But I'm so glad my wife is smart, and I can talk to her about anything. She's a genius.
It's just so hard to say that soul does not exist when you're living in a world like this. I'm rational. Like, I argue with you that numbers are created and not discovered.
Discovered.
But, I want to be rational about this and say that soul is something we created to put meaning into our feelings or things we can't explain, like religion, maybe.
But even if it was created, there's nothing wrong with that, I would say. Because even if
maybe the soul is your gut. That gut feeling,
The instincts, okay. But I would say even our instincts come from our mind. And our instincts might also be influenced by our culture, society, how we grew up.
Like I said, you need to use the hand to use the fingers. So maybe that's mind's way of interpreting the soul. I don't know.
That's deep. That's deep. So, yeah. I don't know. I would say for right now, the mind and soul are inseparable as human creations, right? Because if we did put the mind of a person into a computer machine, their soul would also be in there by definition, right? Now, unless...
No.
Okay.
Because, you just argued putting a mind into an
AI,
sorry. And, but just because you put a mind of a person in an AI doesn't mean it has a soul.
Why? Just because you said so? Prove it. Just because you said there's no soul in it?
Yeah, because it cannot feel stuff it cannot feel for real. It can say that it feels, but it's not true.
If the AI says, I'm scared to die, and then you go to unplug it, and it tries to fight with you or convince you not to kill it, right? That's a feeling of fear, a feeling of self-preservation, the most essential.
Program answering to an action.
But how is that any different than us? Our brains are programmed to keep us alive no matter what. If somebody, attacks us right now, we're programmed to fight against that and try to stay alive, right? If there's fire, we run. That's an instinct, but that doesn't come from a soul feeling. It comes from the mind rationalizing, go that way to stay alive.
No, but we also feel stuff about, obviously non-dangerous stuff too. Let's say you say, I want to go to that island, and even though we went there today, I might say, I have a bad feeling about it, I really don't want to go. And I might not have a radical explanation for it. That's the difference between feeling. You don't need a radical explanation for every feeling that a human feels.
Right. I didn't say we need a radical explanation. I think it's a very basic explanation that these are things that the mind thinks, right? These are the opinions, feelings, decisions the mind makes that sometimes we don't think that much about, but it comes from the mind. You know, we all rationalize danger differently.
Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't come from the mind. I'm saying that's maybe mind's way of expressing the soul. Like I just said a minute ago. It's the hand's way of using the fingers.
I think what you're getting at is that soul is a shortened way to say things that we don't think about too deeply, but that we classify as right and wrong, and how we view right and wrong. I think how you see the soul is essentially, you know, that feeling, which actually doesn't come from here, it comes from up here,
Yeah.
in my opinion, that we have made decisions or how we view the world, and we didn't think that much about it because either it's been taught to us or it's something we briefly thought about and decided that it's this, not that. That's what I'm getting, how you view the soul, if that makes sense.
Maybe, but I don't see the soul as something not thought about deeply. But I don't know. It's too hard, and I'm hungry.
Okay, well, this has been a Marmaris meditation about the soul, whether the mind...
I want to see like other people's comments about this issue, because you have like subscribers from different countries and stuff.
Places. We're gonna... Do you want to do a Sunday video reading comments again?
Sure.
Yeah, we'll read some more comments. We want to get more comments on these philosophical videos. But thank you for watching. My name is Simon Hill. Is the mind separate from the soul? Does the soul exist? Could they be separated? What does the soul do? These are the questions. And I'll just say I'll just give my final conclusion. The mind and soul are one thing. The soul is a creation of the mind, a rational, how the mind has decided to, how we say the mind has decided on morality, right? The mind cannot exist without the soul, is my final opinion. But this is still something to think about more. Okay? All right, so thank you for watching. Bye.